Hey everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day to you. Happy Wednesday to each and every one of you. I hope this week has been a good week for you and you're getting a little bit of your quilting done. This week, we're going to be talking about strip piecing. Now, I've said this in the past. It's not my favorite method. And there's reasons why. And you'll figure it out as we go along, but I'll definitely talk about some of the disadvantages that I find. But you know what? It's not about me. This is about you. And there are a lot of people that love to strip piece. Lots of people that love to strip piece. And I am going to offer you some tips along the way here to make that a little more successful. And if you're really new and you're not sure what strip piecing is, let's talk about it. So strip piecing is exactly what it sounds like. It's piecing with strips. One of the things that you can do if you are working with a quilt that is certain colors, you don't want a lot of variety, you're not using necessarily a lot of scraps, and it's very color coded, sewing 2.5 inch strips together it can be very advantageous to just sew them with the fabric. If you are cutting from yardage, I highly recommend that you make sure that the fabric, first tip, is on the line. So what does that mean? So I'm going to throw a picture up here. I actually cut this fabric and I took a picture so that you could see what I mean by on the fabric. That 2.5 inch line on your ruler needs to be on the fabric and not off the fabric. Okay, so that picture, you'll be able to see that my line on my ruler is on the fabric. Your 1/4 inch foot or your 1/4 inch guide may be on point, but if your fabric isn't cut right, then it's not going to matter. So it's very, very important. And if you're using long strips like this is with a fabric. I mean, with Moda, they call them jelly rolls. I'm using a Robert Kaufman Christmas story fabric for this demonstration. They're not called jelly rolls, but it's the same concept. If you do with a fabric, I would encourage you to check to be sure that your 2.5 inch strips are on point, that the fabric is on the line and not off. Okay. Now, the one thing I like about Robert Kaufman fabrics is they don't do the pinking edges. I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. You got to be careful with it. You can't handle it a lot because you get the shredding along the outsides if you handle it too much, or if you store it and then pull it out and store it and pull it out. The more you handle it, the more shredding will happen. And I will be honest with you, I did not check these. I'm going to sew them together with you. Now, in this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to build a 9 patch. It's not any project. I just want to be able to demonstrate and give you some tips along the way. I'm going to use for the 9 patch a dark batik, which is not, again, my favorite fabric to quilt with, but I'm going to do that with some gold of Robert Kaufman's Christmas story fabrics so that you can actually see that. So we're going to build 9 patches, but I need to talk about if you're going to sew your long width of fabric strips together. There's a couple of things that are really important. So number one was check to see that they're on 2.5 inches, which I did not. So we're going to find out what happens. Make sure your 1/4 inch foot or your 1/4 inch guide is on point. And the other thing is that you want to make sure that when you start sewing, like I'm going to sew 2 strips together with you guys, and we get down to the bottom, right? We're going to start the next adding of the strip on this end. And the reason is, if you just sewed 2 strips together, added another strip, started at the same point, sewed 2 strips together, and just kept going, what you're going to have is your fabric is going to bend. And the reason that it does that is because of your feed dogs. You have feed dogs on the bottom, but you don't have them on the top. So the fabric is being pulled differently from the top and the bottom. So if you just start over every time on the same side, you will get a bend. Number 1 tip, if you're going to do with a fabric, start at one end, and then when you get those 2 sewn together, start at the bottom. I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm actually going to, because I want to make sure I'm clear, that we're going to sew these 2 strips together, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean to make sure that you start at the other end so that you can help that pulling of the feed dogs keep them straight. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started and get this 9 patch made. Now I will say, one of the reasons I don't like doing these long strips, the disadvantage, y'all know I don't like long seams. This is a long seam. I mean, if they're, I don't know how long this is, but let's say it's, this width of fabric is 44 inches, okay? I might have 42 inches worth of sewing. That's a lot of inches, right? There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with this. I might not sew straight. I might not have it lined up straight. My fabric may shift. And then I'm kind of in this dilemma in places along that strip that just aren't straight. So it's not my favorite. But again, it's not about me. This is about you. And you may love this. So let's go ahead and start sewing these really long strips together, and then we'll start building a 9 patch with some smaller strips. And I'll talk about why later I would use smaller strips to get that done. So I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, so I have it loaded. I've got my 2 strips in here together. Oh, you can't even see that. I got 2 strips laying on top of each other, right sides together. Now I'm actually going to press towards this silver when I go to press. However, we're going to go ahead and get this started. Okay. I'm going to speed up the video so we get to the end. Now you see, I don't know if you can, no, you can't see that, but my strips are not lining up. So I'm going to just reposition. Okay. Okay, I'm coming down to the end. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to start adding the next strip to this end. Not, let me pull it over here. Not to this end that's already been stitched, okay? I want to start adding the next strip to this end. And that way my feed dogs, when they're pulling, they're going to help pull more straight it'll even out, because it's gonna, if you just keep adding to this end, which is already stitched, you're gonna get an angle from the feed dogs pulling the fabric the way that it is. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut threads. All right, this is the side that I want to start with. Now notice I don't have even strips. That's okay. That doesn't matter. So I want to add, now you could press at this time if you really wanted to, but for demonstration purposes, I am really just going to add on this end. I am going to stop here for just a second, because a lot of people want to know, I've had a lot of questions about how do you continue to sew straight. If you will notice back there, I'm trying to keep this straight and it falls over the edge. That pull will help keep my stitching straight, okay? Whatever's going on back here will actually affect how much you're stitching straight. I'm going to cut it. All right, we're going to pull it over here. Now, if I were going to press, generally, I would press towards the outside, the gold, okay? But let's just see how wide this is, because it should be 6.5 inches. Generally, I press first, okay? Because pressing changes the dimension, because everything lays flatter. But let's just see where we're at right now. Let's just see. Oh my geez. Okay, if you can see it, you should be able, oop. Okay, this is before pressing, but I gotta tell you, I got a little bit of, I mean, there's some issues going on up here. That might be my strip size, because remember, I didn't check it. But if you look here, I'm at 4 1/4. I'm at 2 1/4. That's appropriate, okay? Because I have a 2.5 inch strip. And this is looking like 6.5. So I would feel really comfortable in slimming this down, because look, It's not, oh, well, I'm not straight either. This is a little bigger than 6.5. This is really close, but we're looking pretty good where the seams match. Now again, like I said, I haven't pressed. If I press, here, let me just do that real quick. I only pressed a certain amount of space. I hope I didn't get a duck pleat. Kimberly Jolly's word. Oh, I need to trim that little piece of string here. Okay. I only pressed a little area. Let's just see what that area looks like. I'm going to pull this down because I need it to fit in the camera. All right. It's a little bigger. And that, I promise you, it's probably because I didn't check these strips. So they're probably a little bigger than 2.5 inches. So what would I do right now? Okay. First and foremost, I would cut so that this is 2 1/4 right along here. Okay. This seam right here where the silver meets this first gold. Oh, you can't even see that. All right. Let me pull that up. Where this stitch or this strip meets this seam, it needs to be 2 1/4. It's really close, but I would line up my 2 1/4 line along this seam, okay? And I would trim anything beyond this. Then, this one will be easier to show you guys. This stitch where the gold meets the silver, I would line this up to 2 1/4. Oh, look how close this is. I mean, it's super close, guys. But that, I mean, this is right on where I stitched. So, because remember, we want the line to be on the fabric. This looks so pretty, doesn't it? This looks so pretty. So that's what you want. You want your 1/4 inch mark on the first two, and whatever that is, oh, it's pretty. If I line these up, this is pretty straight. And then I would line these up and make sure that everything else was straight. That's going to give me that 6.5 inch mark across the top, okay? And you're not going to have a V or a turn or anything else if you stitch one way, sew it all down. When you get down to the bottom, start there for your top and stitch the extra one on top of that. So that's the first round. Now you could actually cut strips from this, and you would, I don't have it all pressed, but we're here. Let me just press it real quick. So this end over here is a little wonky, right? So I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to line this up on a straight line. I'm going to move this down just a little bit. All right. I'm going to go ahead and clean this edge up. Now, if you were working with 3 colors and you were never going to change the colors in your quilt, you give yourself a straight edge. Two 2.5 inch strips is what we had. So I'm going to cut this at 2.5 inches. Okay. Just looking at everything, making sure we're good. And then you would have your first of a 3 patch. Let me just see if I cut this okay. I did cut a little bit crooked, but I would line it up along this 1/4 inch. I got a little bit hanging off. Okay, so I would clean this up again. Flip it over. Put this on this end on the 6 1/2. We have a 2 1/4 here. We have a 4 1/4 here. Everything looks straight. I'm going to clean that up. And now we have a 2 1/2 by 6 1/2 inch strip that we can add other strips to. Okay. And you would continuously cut 2 1/2 inches, because that's what we started with. 2 1/2 inches all the way down these strips. Okay. But now we're going to build a 9 patch in another method using strip piecing. We're going to build a 9 patch. Batiks are not my favorite. If you want to know why, it's because they fuss with your 1/4 inch seam. They fold different in the seam, so it makes it a little more difficult to find what exactly is the appropriate measurement when you're sewing with cotton. But I'm going to take a dark fabric with a light, and I'm going to sew a dark. So it'll be dark, light, dark, and then the next strip is a light, a dark, and a light. Okay, neutral, not neutral, neutral. Okay, I'm going to sew these together. I'm going to cut the same way. I'm first going to measure, but I'm going to show you that. I'm going to get these sewn together off camera, but then I'm going to show you what exactly this means when I get these all sewn together and how this works. Now, I will tell you, these are 2 1/2 inch strips and they're 10 inches long. If you're going to do it and you want a lot of scrappiness, you're going to take smaller than your width of fabric strips. You're not going to take a jelly roll. You're going to take various different strip lengths, and this is going to allow you to have more variety. You're not working with just 3 colors. You want variety in your quilt. This is a preferred method for that. I got 10 inches long, so I'm able to subcut 2 1/2, 5, 2 1/2, which will be 7 1/2, and then 10 if this is appropriately measured. Either way, I'll be able to at least get 3 in there, if not 4. So let me get these sewn, and then I'll go to the next step. Okay, so I've got everything stitched together. So I have a dark here and 2 neutrals, and I've pressed towards the dark on this strip. And then underneath, I have 2 darks with a neutral in the middle, and I've still pressed towards the dark. And what that does is it allows our seams to nest together. So I don't do this either typically, but it is a faster method. So you put your 2 seams together that are nested, and it'll help hold those fabrics together. I typically just cut one at a time, just my preferred method. Shift happens, but we're doing this. We're doing this together, guys. All right. So what I would do, I'm going to move this over. All right. I'm going to line this up along my 2 1/2 inch mark with the fabric, or with the line on the fabric. And you'll see that my 1/4 inches are, I don't know that you can see that, but my stitch line where the seams meet are on On this one, it's on 2 1/4. On this one, it's on 4 1/4. So we are good to go. I got this 2 1/2 inch. We sewed 2 1/2 inch blocks. So I give it a cut. Now the bonus behind this is that these are together. Okay? So I can directly take these strips to the sewing machine and sew them together, which is what I'll do. All right. I'm going to move this out of the way. And then we would just pull this down, line it up again on the 2 1/2 inch mark. Our seams are still nested. Okay. And I'm going to cut another 2 1/2 inch strips. You can just keep on doing this forever and ever and ever. And what it gives you are these two that are ready to be sewn together. Okay? They are ready to go. You can sew them together. Whoops. Get them out of the way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to sew it to these two. Because I'm going to have one of these put together. I'm going to stitch along here on this one. And I'm going to take this one and sew it along here. So I'll come back at you so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've sewn these two together. I actually did press towards the outside, if you can see here. So those are two. I'm going to grab the next one that I subcut. I'm going to sew these two together, and I'll have a 9 patch, and then we'll measure it at the end. Cross your fingers, guys. All right, so here we are. Got like this little shiny thing right here. I don't know what that is. Okay. So I've sewn them all together, and I got to tell you, I'm going to pull this ruler off so you can see. My points look great. The issues I'm having is right along here. It's not perfect. There's a little bit of a extra right here. It's okay. But along this top right here, I think you can see that it's not 6 1/2, and it seems to be a little crooked. That's what happens when I strip piece. But you know what? This can be cut. This can be trimmed, and it will work. That is a bonus. Look how pretty those points look, guys. Gorgeous. So it is a method. Now notice I do have 3 of the same. That's why whenever you make your strips and if you want variety, you've got to have things that are smaller and not those long strips. And when you go to cut everything, you can mix and match. So I can cut these another 2 1/2 inches, 2 1/2 inches. I'll get 4 more, and I can mix and match how I want them to go. But this is strip piecing. You take your strips, you sew them together, whether they're short strips from your scraps or with the fabric, right? Either way, this is strip piecing. So I hope this is helpful. I'll be right back at you. Okay, strip piecing. Yeah, it's real. And you know, there are even some patterns that people will write, and they will give directions for strip piecing. So I just wanted you to be aware of what strip piecing was and how to make it just a little bit more beneficial. So if you're going to sew those long strips together, start at one end, sew them together, and then start at the end to sew it back. And you can keep on adding them over and over. It'll help keep those strips straight, okay? If you want variety, you want to strip smaller sizes. You can cut them all up. Once they're all cut up, you can mix and match. Oh, look, I've got a cat that's coming to say hello. Yep, thank you, kitty. So, if you want that variety, you can sew different, as long as they work within your subcuts. So you don't want to sew something together that is too small and it's not going to fit the pattern. But you can mix and match very, very easily with your scraps if you sew smaller. And to be honest with you, I have a little bit more control is how I feel about it, because they're smaller and I don't have to worry about going that length of fabric. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or any suggestions, I know a number of y'all love to give some of those suggestions, and they are so welcome, and I appreciate that. But I will be on today without the cat, I'm sure, and Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm here in Virginia. I hope that you come out for a live quilting and answer session. And I encourage you. It's not my favorite method. I just get more errors when I do stuff like this. But man, do those points look pretty, right? So, not my favorite, but it might be yours. And, you know, we all work in different ways. So I hope this was helpful. I hope I see you today at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. But until next time, guys, which next week I will be here. And listen, it's been a hot minute since I've done some label marking tools. I got 3 more to show you, and we're going to use them and take them through the wash and through all that rigmarole that our quilts may go through to see how they hold up. So I look forward to seeing you next week. But until next time, guys, happy Wednesday, happy hump day. May y'all continue to be inspired, productive, and joyful. Know that we believe in you, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. See y'all soon. Happy quilting.